Hello, and welcome to a short little tour through the Game Grumps animation that I recently made. If you haven't checked it out, you can watch it. I left a link in the description to see what it is. Feel free to keep watching if you're curious about where the clips came from, what my drawing preferences are, what my, color choices have been, and some other little fun tidbits. So here we go. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is where these clips came from. Similar to the fake laughter animation, I edited a couple different clips together that all sort of had to do with the Grumps joking about Buzzfeed or making fun of clickbaity titles. I didn't end up using all of the content from each of these links, and they'll be in the description as well if you want to check them out. So when I captured the audio, after that was done, I edited it into a way that I thought was funny, but it wasn't an actual series of moments that happened in quick succession. There were a couple different jokes that I brought together to make something new, something more original? Not really. I'm still just editing their stuff together. But this is the video of the capture. It's really simple. It's not even a high-res capture. I was mostly just using it for the audio. You can see on the right side here, I can't even make it out, but there were some notes for exactly what I mentioned. I was watching a couple random episodes back in the day and made notes about when they were joking about Buzzfeed, because I noticed it come up a couple times, and I asked people on the subreddit, hey, do you remember the episode where they joked about throwing a dog out the window? Yes. And someone would say exactly what it was. So this is the sequence of capture stuff. Just a couple different episodes. And it took, 8.5 minutes to sort of just play through each of the clips and sort of get what I was looking for. So that was fun. When all of the audio was captured, I brought it into Adobe Audition, and then I just laid it out and edited it together like this. Pretty simple stuff. Just edit together what I thought was funny. Okay, so this is the actual flash file or animate file. This is one of the first shots in the thing. So you'll notice that it's just a bright green. That was so I could key it out when I was editing the actual video in Premiere later. I just kept it green because I knew I wanted, excuse me. So I knew I wanted some context for why they were talking about Buzzfeed so much. And I decided I would put them on the phone because I was pretty sure they were using a cell phone or maybe a laptop. And then I went into Firefox. Firefox has a neat little function where you can make it pretend you're viewing through a mobile device, and you can shrink the browser window within the browser. Once I did that, I again set up a screen recorder and then did a little manual scrolling animation. So you can see the mouse. I just did the easing in and out on my own, and then it was edited into the actual animation. The process that I have for animation, if you can call it that, is making sketches through the whole thing. These are kind of janky and empty looking because I started editing through the sketches after I started animating. So some of them are like faded and some of them are not. So this big like blocky one was just so I could quickly go through and make little thumbnails of each of the little framing ideas, and then after they were placed, I drew a more detailed version of what he might eventually look like. And that pretty much explains most of the process of the animation. It just became a matter of filling in as many details as I could to make it a bunch of believable characters and not just little figures floating in space, but it pretty much starts just like this. They're just floating in space and they're not really doing much. As I went along, I started making choices for color and choices for the character designs, and slowly but surely it came into its own. I really don't put too much effort into stuff that's going to be outside the window, so everything has a pretty clear cutoff point, which I highly recommend you do. See, they don't have feet. I highly recommend that you do this if you're planning your shots out ahead of time. Don't worry about what's going to be off the frame, and just make sure that the stuff that's in frame has a good perspective to it and makes sense in relationship to the scene that just happened before it. Here's a little thing. You can see I shift the background color to sort of suggest that they were going into a fantasy land as they were going on with the bit about Buzzfeed nonsense. As the background color shifts, I also made the rectangle take up a larger space, because later there is a camera movement where Danny is talking and then the camera pulls back, and then if we pulled back without a large block there, we would have seen the edge of tomorrow and beyond the grid into where animation was not created. I think this is the one part of the animation I would fix if I had another chance. It's Danny drawing this thing on the board, but the animation of him actually writing the stuff was honestly, it was just like a couple minutes of just dibble dabbling, and I think it shows. Oh well. I had some fun making up these little like Buzzfeed fake articles. So here you have a wonderful post by Grundle Tickler, a Buzzfeed underling, who is, I don't know, this guy. And he wrote an article on the unluckiest day of the year, Friday the 13th, October 2017. These are just based on the actual BuzzFeed website design from whenever I looked them up. Here's a BuzzFeed article by TJ Detweiler from BuzzFeed Elementary, who posted in 1998. Wow. Guess he had a nosebleed. Here's a pretty classic manual blur for when we zoom into Danny saying, "You won't fucking believe what happens next." Here's some of that classic non-animated walking. Everybody loves that. I guess I'll talk for a second about the background. We're just making some tea. There's like a bit of a gradient in the back, so I think it's pretty subtle. Yeah, I didn't want the background to just be flat colors, and at the very least have just a touch of depth to it. So I added a little gradient from the bottom to sort of suggest that maybe there's a light source above them or some such. Now here is probably some of my best work as far as effects go. You see, you have some water effects here that are made from a brush going from left to right across the screen. You can easily replicate this effect at home if you have a cursor that can go from left to right across the screen. I highly recommend you do it to add a lot of depth to your water scene. This is probably the only scene with like a background and not just like an overlay of stuff. So you can see that Aaron has a little shadow under himself to show that he is attached to this fake map of Florida, the taint of America. And as Danny pops up in front, I might have made like a bit of like a blur, like a shadow effect to differentiate him from the background if I had another chance, but I think as it is, it's still fine. His face is pretty large and expressive, and you can't miss it. So then they laugh, the background sort of cuts away because they're back in fantasy land of doing the bit, and the thing ends. This was an actual just cut from when I was working on the sketches, and I kind of liked the way it looked as the end slate for the animation. And then the little bonus piece about, needing to take a poopy. Lip sync is lip sync. I'll say that I did the animation just key poses the first time through, sort of synchronizing it to the voiceover, and then only later toward the end, after some of the final drawings were done and the backgrounds and stuff were all in place, did I do the sort of wiggling bits of the characters going from pose to pose and sort of moving along with their, this is a good one, of just Aaron just bouncing while he's laughing. It's very simple, but it sort of gets the point across that he's laughing. Yeah, this is just a style that I prefer to use with animation because I don't have the patience. I can't keep drawing these characters over and over, but a couple key poses here and there, free transforms in between them is fine for me. So I hope this was a little bit informative. If you want to, explore the Flash file on your own time, let me know in the comments if you've learned a little bit something about how to make an animation great. That's what it's all about, baby. Thanks for watching this, and I hope to see you sometime in a future video. Bye.
Love you.
Jordy loves you too.